Uh,
And if you click on that, then you want it
how about
on
now?
monitor. There. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. It's working now.
It didn't add it to the track.
All right. Well, it's up.
Hey, welcome
And
everybody. We're only a ways in.
I made myself black and white again by opening Streamlabs again. Hold on.
There you
All
go.
right.
I think it's funny that that just automatically turns your camera black and white.
Yeah, usually it stops the video output.
All right.
All right. Well, we didn't get too far into the news. We'll just keep going, I guess. We didn't really get to much.
So
We'll
we were
just skip
talking
over
we were
the
talking about
intro.
Kyrie Irving and the fact that he's had to pay $500,000 to anti-hate organization over the last couple weeks, as well as he's been suspended 5 games. At one point, it didn't look like he was going to be coming back for the Nets, but there was rumors that he had a meeting with Joe Tsai and things went fairly well. But they said today he still has more to do at whatever that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I think
Um,
he's done uh, in Brooklyn.
who's gonna take him at this point, though?
I don't know. It's just going to be a hard sell to bring him back after you made such a big deal of everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Brooklyn is like the worst place to do that too, because Brooklyn is a huge Jewish community,
Oh, really?
like Hasidic Jews too,
Hmm.
like the super strict Jewish faith with like the hats and um
The locks.
the locks, yeah.
Wow. Oh,
So like Brooklyn is like one of the hot spots in the country for um the Jewish faith. So
oof.
yeah, of all the places you could have done this, that's one of the worst.
And it's
Not that doing it anywhere is good, but
and just to throw my opinion on this, I don't think Kyrie Irving is anti-Semitic. What I
no,
do
he's just an
think
idiot.
is he is stupid and can't just outright say I'm not anti-Semitic. Like if he when they first asked him just said, "Look guys, I'm not anti-Semitic. I do have some beliefs that maybe I connect to that or whatever. That's fine, but at least be like just say I am not anti-Semitic. If he had just said that, I think he could have almost said whatever he
That's
wanted and he probably would have been fine.
that's one of those things that like people who are not intelligent people always do, where they get asked a very straightforward question, like, "Are you anti-Semitic?" All you have to say is no.
Like
And yes, Kyrie Irving at no point said that. He would just basically kind of dodge the question, and
and talk about
it's
it
the
his
same with like,
heritage and stuff. It's like,
yeah,
bro, just say no and you're good. Just
yeah. You don't need to talk about your heritage. It's not important in this question.
yeah.
Just say no.
Cuz and I understand what he's saying. I don't agree with what he's saying.
Right.
But I understand where if you believe those things, then like what he's saying. But even what he's saying is dumb as fuck. He's
Right.
essentially saying, "Well, I am actually Jewish, so I can't be anti-Semitic." That's essentially when you break it down to like the dumbest of terms. That's what he's saying.
Essentially, yeah.
But
But
just because
that's
you
not how that
are, yeah,
works.
just because you are of a certain class doesn't mean you're not capable of being racist against
I
your
mean,
own
also
class.
true.
That's
Yeah,
but that's like
absolutely.
his argument. And like
Yeah.
that's fundamentally like possible. It 100% is possible.
Yeah.
That's why you need to just say I am not anti-Semitic.
Yeah. It's not hard to say. It's a very simple question to answer, and he failed that question.
But yeah, but
But
with this whole situation, I don't know who's gonna want to touch him now.
I, it would be real tough to find a team that would give up anything for him
I think the
if
only
you tried to
team
trade.
desperate enough is the Lakers right now.
Yeah. But moving him out in California is not. I mean, that's not a great place for if you're trying to get forgiveness for stuff like that.
I mean, that's true. California, they love to cancel people out here.
Right, exactly. I mean,
well, but my thing is they're desperate. They want to get off of
yes,
some contracts, and like they might be willing to do that in hopes that LeBron can kind of little bro him a little bit. Would be my guess. But that's probably the only team I could see really like wanting him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be, and they're not going to give up much for him because they're going to be one of the only teams that would even offer anything.
I don't know. They might because they want to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Well, true. Get rid of Russell Westbrook for Kyrie.
And get rid of a couple other pieces. That way you can clear cap space and maybe actually sign some shooters.
Right. But, all right, let's move on to another horrible person, and that's Dan Snyder. Well,
I wouldn't consider Kyrie Irving a horrible person. He's just not a particularly bright person at this particular moment.
Another stupid person.
Well, no. Dan Snyder's a terrible person.
Be horrible.
Yeah,
he's stupid and happens to be horrible, and that's Dan Snyder for the Washington Commanders. After a lot of reports that owners were going to be voting to force a sale of the team and or to sort of push him out of ownership, apparently he is now exploring the sale before he has to be forced out. Jeff Bezos has shown interest in buying the team, which, I mean, if he's into sports, I can't believe Jeff Bezos doesn't already own a team.
I mean, he owns like one of everything else, right?
He has literal infinite money. Like, there's not many people you can say that about. He's one of them. The other person, weirdly, is RG3 has shown interest in joining an ownership group that would buy the team. He didn't say, like, this group. He just is like, I would like to be a part owner of the team. But
interesting.
But, yeah, so...
I mean, if I was a player and I had the funds, bet your ass I'd try to get on some kind of ownership group for a team. That's guaranteed money for life, basically.
In the NFL, absolutely.
Yeah. In any major sport, to be honest.
Yeah, but the NFL is by far the biggest money maker.
I would agree with that.
But yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully Dan Snyder is out of sports very soon.
I bet you by next football season he will be.
I would agree. Moving on to a little better news. Tom Brady, I mean, I guess it's good news for him. Tom Brady passes 100,000 passing yards, which is an absolutely ridiculous number.
I mean, to be fair, though, that is regular and postseason.
Correct.
Even still, that's nuts.
Yeah. He's like 14,000 over, I think it was Drew Brees was number 2. It's either Drew Brees or Peyton Manning had like 86,000 some.
And the crazy part is he's probably going to put another, 1,000, 1,500 on that by the end of the year?
Yeah. We'll see if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, right now they're kind of shaky.
The only thing that saves them is their division's awful.
I think they won today, so that got them back to 500. So
they played in Germany today, the first ever NFL game in Germany. Yeah, they beat the Panthers barely. They won by like a touchdown.
Hey, a win is a win is a win.
Especially in pro football. In college football, not necessarily true.
No, wins are huge.
You got to win in style in college.
Well, that and you can't lose because you lose like once or twice and your season's over.
Yeah.
As far as like bowl contentions and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, good for Tom Brady. I mean, I'd be curious to see by year breakdown because, like, obviously he's played longer than anybody, so that helps with that too.
Well, it's kind of like the all-time points that LeBron James is going to be passing.
Yeah.
At some point, most likely this year. I think he's only like 1,000 points shy at right now, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, I haven't looked lately.
Well, I think he was
coming into the year, he was like 1,200.
Yeah, so I can't imagine he's too far, like under 1,000, probably right around there. But that's another
Yeah,
longevity stat. Although, if you look at LeBron's averages, I think he's at like 20 some odd points a game.
right. His average is
It's
pretty damn good
ridiculous.
too.
It's not like insane, but for how long, yeah, it's pretty fucking
Right. To
ridiculous.
put up and he's never really had a year where he was like below that.
He's had a
His
couple, but I think
his like,
more so because of
lowest
injuries.
career, yeah. But his like lowest points per game career wise is probably like 24.
Probably. I haven't looked it up, but it wouldn't surprise me.
But but yeah. One more, I guess, bad news. I don't know. This was an interesting one. The Colts fired their head coach Frank Reich. The Colts have looked absolutely horrendous this year for a team that was, after picking up Matt Ryan, people were like, okay, we can maybe make a run for a year or two with Matt Ryan, and they have like 2 wins on the year. The weird part though was that they fired former Colts center Jeff Saturday as the interim coach, who was not on the coaching staff. He had no connection to the team other than being a former player there.
He was an ESPN
And
analyst.
yeah, and he has never coached in his life.
He's coached high school.
Well, okay. That yes, he's never coached any level or any NFL or college coaching. Especially not as a head coach. But this is another one of those Jeff, or is it Jeff Irsay? Jim Irsay. Jim Irsay. Like hiring his friends and doing weird. It's such a weird move with how many coaches are out there that
Yeah,
like.
but you're looking at an interim coach, and if you're right now, they're not looking good. Why try and bring someone in on a shit half year? And then, like, you might as well just bring someone in, let him play the year out. If he does well, then I don't know, maybe you put him in the conversation to actually hire him permanently. If he doesn't, then you're on to the crop of good coaches that inevitably get let go every year.
Yeah. It's just weird that you wouldn't promote somebody from inside the team, or
I mean, to be honest,
it's just so
I
strange.
think this was brilliant.
Uh,
It looks crazy, and I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it blows up. But bringing someone from the outside who was a part of the culture when the Colts actually had a good culture as a player, bringing some of that knowledge and how to develop that culture, because he was a big part of that.
oh yeah, he was one of the best centers in football for
Yeah.
a decade.
So I don't know. I think this could potentially be great. Now, I think he's going to get out coached a lot, which is going to suck. But I think if you're trying to like flip the culture a little bit and get people back on track, I actually don't think this is a terrible idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I also heard another argument against it, which was from Joe Thomas.
Dude, that guy.
Did you hear about?
I heard a
his?
soundbite from him, so it's probably not representative of his full opinion on it. But like, he was on doing a podcast or on a radio show, and said it was like the most egregious thing he's seen in football. And I'm like,
part.
calm the fuck down, bro. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'll find it for you out when we're done. And send it to you.
Basically, his argument was like, coaches work super hard to get to that level, and just being bypassed by a guy who's never done it at any level just because he's friends with the owner is kind of like disrespectful to coaches that are out there or position coaches that could have been promoted. Basically being like, this dude off the street can do this job better than you can, essentially.
But there is some irony when you're on a talk show analyzing things, when there are people who have worked and gone to school, and you're there because you were a professional football player.
Oh,
yeah,
that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, you could say that about any major profession.
No, that's totally fair. I will say that most of the former players who go into broadcasting of some sort they went, because it's kind of a joke diploma, they went to school for like sports analyst.
Yeah, or what is it, like it's sports broadcasting or something
Yeah,
like that.
like a lot of, I mean, especially now with how much money former players are getting to be analysts or broadcasters. Like, why would you not go into that as a, you have to go to college anyway. You might as well get a degree in something that can set you up after you play.
Right.
Because even guys who had terrible NFL careers can go back and be college analysts. And, you know, there's a lot of guys on college broadcast groups who are former players who never really played in the NFL, but
I don't know. I just find just a little bit of a sense of irony when I hear
that's,
him say that, because it's like
yeah,
you're in the same position he's in, just in a different line of work.
that's totally fair. I will say there's definitely more opportunity for somebody in um, a broadcasting kind of situation as opposed to head coaching in the NFL.
Yeah.
But and there's probably more work to get to a head coach in the NFL as opposed to I mean maybe not on like ESPN or something like that, but
I was gonna say
there's a
maybe
lot
not.
of networks,
Maybe at a lower level you might be right, but like,
local sports and stuff
yeah.
like
But
that.
when you're talking about ESPN, when you're talking about one of the biggest sports networks
Yeah,
in
of
the
course, that's
world.
fair. No, you're absolutely right. It's a good point. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah.
But either way, I think this could sneakily be a great move, even though the Colts are looking real dumb making the move at the moment.
I mean, they won today, so he's 1-0 as a coach.
Dude, imagine if he wins out. That's all I'm saying. It's not gonna happen,
Sneaks
but
into the playoffs.
everyone at the end of the
That'd
year
be a
will be
shit
like, "Oh
show.
my God, look how good of a coach he is." One of the points I heard about this that made a lot of sense was there are a lot of coaches that actually get a shot with not a lot of experience.
They are, but they've usually coached in like college or they were coordinators for a long time or something like that. But I mean, you're right. There's a lot of guys who get, there's a lot of teams that hire first time coaches,
So,
first time head
yeah.
coaches.
I don't know. I think this could sneakily be a good move, but only time will tell. We'll see how the Colts look in a couple weeks.
I was wrong. The Colts actually aren't as bad as I thought. They're 4-5-1 now, so they did get a tie, but yeah,
Okay.
they were 3-5-1 before with whatever his name was, Frank Reich. All right, let's move to baseball.
Yes.
The White Sox have hired a new coach to replace whatever his name was, the old guy, La Russa, Tony
Yes.
La
There you
Russa.
go.
They hired Pedro Grifol. Don't even know if I'm saying that right. He's never been a coach before. He was the Kansas City bench coach the last few years, and he was their assistant hitting coach for 7 years before that. Not really much on his resume outside of that. He was an assistant hitting coach and then a bench coach and then promotion to manager.
Have you heard some
um,
of the reports coming out of Chicago about the White Sox?
no.
So I guess there's been reports. I don't know who, but apparently players have been saying about how like archaic the mindset is there and
Now
everything.
or before?
No, right now, like currently with the team.
Like because of the new coach or just
No. I
in
mean, just like
general?
in general, that's the
Okay.
culture they have there
Okay.
as of right now. Because I
Yes.
can't say the culture's changed because I mean they just hired a new
Right.
coach.
He's
and-
not even there yet,
yeah.
probably.
So like I guess there were reports coming out that like they were very old school, and that team is we've talked about many times, pretty young with a lot of
Yeah.
talent.
The
So
only veterans on that team at this point are Jose Abreu and Tim Anderson. And neither of those guys, Jose Abreu's old because he came from Cuba, so he's like 33 now. But he didn't start playing until he was like 27 or 28. And Tim Anderson's probably not even 30 yet.
I doubt it.
But But yeah, so I mean, yeah, this makes sense. He's a younger guy. I think he's in his early 40s, if I remember right. Um, so yeah, makes sense. Get a younger guy in there. We'll see what he can do. It's interesting. Same as Jeff Saturday. I mean, at least this guy's been in the big leagues, but not. He's never been even in the minor leagues. He was never a manager. So
Hopefully for them, I hope so, because they were not nearly as good as they should have been this year. We
they
both
were
had high hopes for them.
probably one of the top disappointments of the year, if not the well.
I forget where they ended up because they made, if I'm not mistaken, they made a push at the end to
They
make it
finished
look
exactly.
respectable.
They finished at 500, but they were 11 games behind Cleveland. So I mean, they weren't close in the division, but they did at least get back up to 500. Um, so
It's kind of what the Giants did this year, which we'll get into in a little bit. They
yeah,
started off real bad and then somehow clawed back to make it look semi-respectable.
right. All right, let's get into the Gold Glovers, which were announced last weekend, I believe. We're just gonna run through these really quick.
Real quick before you do, switched
Yeah.
and checking out the pineapple one now.
Okay.
So we're on flavor 2.
On this flavor one.
It was okay. It wasn't like good. Do you remember? Did you ever drink Mad Dog 2020?
No.
Okay, so it's like a flavored liqueur, but like a really cheap garbage flavored liqueur.
Okay.
And they had like a raspberry one. It kind of tastes like that, but not as bad. Because it's not like a liqueur. It's more of a
Right,
seltzer.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
All right.
it's okay, but not my favorite flavor.
Yeah. Hopefully this one's better.
It's pineapple.
Um,
It smells okay, so we'll see.
I do like pineapple. Okay. Starting in the American League at pitcher, Shane Bieber from the Guardians wins it. Um, at catcher, we have Jose Trevino for the Yankees. Vlad Guerrero takes it at first base. All these guys was their first time ever. Actually, everybody in the American League except for one guy was their first time ever winning it.
Which is
Um,
funny when you look at the guys in the National League that won it.
I know. Exactly. Uh, this at first base, Vlad Guerrero. Second base, Andreas Jimenez for Cleveland. Third base, Raymond Urias for the Orioles, or Ramon Urias. Um, Shortstop, Jeremy Pena for the Astros, who won't win Rookie of the Year, or he won Rookie of the Year last year. No, he was in it this year,
I was gonna say I feel like he was in it this year.
but he was not. He wasn't around long enough to actually be in it or to win it. Left field, Steven Kwan for Cleveland. Center field, Miles Straw for Cleveland. Right field, Kyle Tucker for the Astros. And then the new utility Gold Glove went to DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees, and he's the only one who's won it before. This was his fourth Gold Glove.
Bro, I just gotta give it up to Cleveland. 4 of 10.
I mean,
4 of 10.
look,
That's
when your
that's
whole
good.
thing is small ball and outrunning people, you have to play good defense.
When
I was a little.
go ahead.
What?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was a little surprised Shane Bieber won because he's not really known as a top fielder. We have better fielding pitchers. It's just weird he won it.
Yeah, but your good pitchers also get like a bonus point.
Yeah,
It's the same with like everything. Your all stars or your superstars always get like a bonus point. So if they do
Yeah.
well, even if someone does just as well, they're almost
Right.
always gonna win it.
it's always like the tiebreaker. It's like, well, these guys were pretty close, but this guy's Aaron Judge and this guy's somebody no one's ever heard of. All right, let's move over to the National League. At pitcher, we had Max Fried with his third consecutive Gold Glove and third total. He's won the last three. Catcher JT Real Muto for the Phillies, his second. First base was Christian Walker for the Diamondbacks, his first. Second base, Brendan Rodgers for the Rockies, his first. Third base, Nolan Arenado. That's his 10th consecutive third base.
That's what I was. That's why when you said everyone on American leagues got their first, I'm like, yeah, Nolan Arenado.
I'm pretty sure. How long's he been in the league? That has to be pretty much his entire career, right?
I think he's been in the league 14 years. It's not his whole career, I don't think.
No. He's been in the league 10 years. He's won every single year he's been in the league. He's won the third base Gold Glove.
Can we just appreciate how underappreciated he is?
Nolan Arenado is one of those superstars that nobody talks about.
Like, everybody just kind of hand waves him like, oh, yeah, he's obviously great. But, like, no one really talks about him. You know what I mean?
I think part of that is that he spent the first, 8 years of his career in Colorado. So, like, nobody really cared. Like, for one, your hitting stats get overlooked when you're in Colorado because everyone's like, oh, they're just hitting in Denver.
Yeah.
And then also the Rockies suck, so...
Well, they have sucked,
attention to you. It's pretty much since he's been in the league, the Rockies have sucked. But all right, moving on to shortstop. Dansby Swanson for the Braves, his first. Left field, Ian Happ, his first for the Cubs. Center field, Trent Grisham for the Padres, that's his second. Right fielder, Mookie Betts for the Dodgers, his sixth. And then the new utility one for the National League is Brendan Donovan for the Cardinals, his first one.
Good to see a lot of guys get there first.
There's a lot. I mean, even the National League where there's more older guys, there's still like 5, 6, 5, I think 5 that won their first one. So like 14 of the 20 were first-time Gold Glove winners.
Gotta love that.
Yeah. And a lot of them are rookies or like second-year guys. So a lot of good defense in young players.
Hopefully it can maintain.
Like to see it. Yeah. Especially for Cleveland.
If dude, that's as I can't remember. I'm sure it's happened quite a bit, but that's a lot of Gold Gloves for one team in 1 year.
I think maybe it was Silver Slugger. Somebody won like 6 1 year, but it might have been Silver Slugger.
That would make a little bit I guess that would make a little more sense if you have a bunch of really good hitters. I could see that.
Oh, so okay. So it was last year. I wasn't wrong. It was Gold Glove. Last year's St. Louis Cardinals hold the record for most by a single team with 5.
That's insane.
Do you know the most by a player?
I would bet.
It's. I'll give. Do you want a hint?
Yeah, go ahead. Give me one hint. Yeah.
All right. Do you want the position?
Well, okay. So if I don't take the position, what other options do I have for a hint?
I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, then give me the position.
Give you team, I guess.
Okay, position's fine.
It's a pitcher.
Oh, is it? Not Nolan Ryan. No. It's of that era though. It's of that like 90s era, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Schilling?
No.
Oh.
He pitched for a long time, all for one team. Well, pretty much all for one team. I think he switched teams at the end.
All for one team. Maddox?
Yep.
Yeah.
Greg Maddox has 18 consecutive Gold Gloves.
that's absurd. That's like talking about records that it will never be broken. That'll never be broken.
Yeah. All right, let's get into a couple quick free agent things. Edwin Diaz, the closer for the Mets, has agreed to stay there. 5 years, 102 million. That's a big contract for a closer. Um,
I mean, Edwin Diaz is pretty damn good.
he is. I feel like big closer contracts never work out though. I feel like there's a lot of guys who sign big contracts as a closer and then end up as a middle relief guy in a year or two.
I kind of feel like you're not wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah. Uh, and then Clayton Kershaw also signed a 1 year deal to stay with the Dodgers, 20 million, which seems really high. Not that Clayton Kershaw is bad yet; he's still a really good pitcher, but he has not had the healthiest couple seasons.
I don't know. It's just tough because when he's healthy and he's there, I mean,
He's still a top
yeah,
pitcher.
he's still. I wouldn't put him as like one of the best in the game anymore, but he's like maybe in the tier just below that like elite tier at this point. You know what I mean? I he's still. I would take him over 95% of the league, maybe even maybe 90% of the league.
When he's healthy.
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
when he's healthy and right, yeah.
This season, he had a 2.8 ERA.
Which is a bad year for him.
Right. Right. That's his downfall,
Like,
is a 2.8.
That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know if I would say he's elite anymore, but he's like just below elite, I would say probably now when he's healthy.
Yeah. I know that you, like, as a Giants fan, like, can't like Clayton Kershaw. You're not allowed to, but, like, man, I'm glad he's not going to be out of the league yet. I love watching Clayton Kershaw pitch. He has such a unique windup. He has one of the best curveballs in the history of baseball.
I would,
if not the best.
I don't know. Barry Zito's in his prime would beg to. He'd like to at least get in the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he is for sure the best. I'm just saying the argument could be made.
I would agree with that.
For the period of time he's been doing it, nobody can hit it still.
Yeah, it's funny. I like Clayton Kershaw. There's a couple Dodgers that I do like, even as a Giants fan. I like Clayton Kershaw. I like Mookie Betts a lot.
Yeah.
Really, that's it that I can think of just off the top of my head.
There's some younger guys they have, especially pitching. Urias is fun to watch.
Oh, I like Tight Pants.
Yeah.
Who's their Walker Buehler. I really like Walker Buehler.
That's the one. That's who I was going to say. He got hurt this year, but...
We have affectionately named him Tight Pants in San Francisco.
Okay.
Because he wears, like, the tightest baseball pants I think I've seen in a long time.
Look, I got to say, I'm a big fan. I always wore the, tighter baseball pants just below the knee, big pull-up socks. I hated the long... like sweatpant baseball pants.
I hated it until I wore them like that for 1 year because that's just how our team in high school wore our unis. Yeah. And man, after wearing them long, it's so much more comfortable. It doesn't look as good, I don't think. But man, to play in, it is so much more comfortable.
Fair enough.
You don't have anything like gripping your leg. I don't know if you ever had it to where like you take your baseball pants off and you got that gnarly ring just below your knee because your pants are so tight.
Elastic
was. Like, oh no, you don't get any of that discomfort. No, it was so nice. But I do say it doesn't look nearly as good.
Yeah.
But I actually don't like the tight upper pants. I like the old school style, like the old like 40s where you have like the baggy upper.
The Knickerbocker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of those.
I like them. I think
that's not my style.
Pure appearance, I like them, but I don't know if you'll ever see anything like that again.
No, I don't think so. But, all right, really quick run through these. These are the top free agents available this year. Starting off with Jacob deGrom. Most rumors have him going back to the Mets. Just on a new deal.
I don't know if anybody wants to pay him what the Mets are willing to pay him. Because like he is literally Mr. Glass.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, just shut him down. and just let him pitch the last like 2 months of the year.
Like, I don't know.
Let him
It's
play in the minors to as his spring training halfway through the season, and then just bring him up for the last couple months.
like he's one of my more frustrating players in baseball
Oh,
right now
he
because,
could be the greatest pitcher of all time
well,
if he was healthy.
yeah, for his whole career, I think that ship has sailed. Even if he
Oh, right.
literally
Yeah,
stayed
yeah.
healthy from here on out, I don't know if he'd ever get there. But
No.
yeah, potential wise, he is electric. One of the
Yeah.
few pitchers that I think is genuinely fun to watch.
Yeah. Some more Xander Bogarts.
There's
There's not a
rumors
lot of
about
top
him
short
going back too.
to Boston.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he said he'd like to go back to Boston, but
Okay.
he's gonna see what the market has for
Yeah.
him.
Anthony Rizzo is leaving the Yankees. I really want Cleveland to get him, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah. I think he fits Cleveland because he's not going to be a ton of money and he's a solid home run hitter, which is something Cleveland does not have.
They have one.
And
Jose Ramirez. That's it.
maybe Oscar Gonzalez if he can keep doing what he did in the playoffs, but Aaron Judge is obviously the big name out there. Who the hell knows what's going on with him? If I'm him, I'm out of New York. I'm not even listening to New York.
I would listen to New York because I guarantee you New York's going to offer him a ton of money, and then I'd take that offer everywhere else.
Yeah. Be like, this is what they're going to pay me. I'll leave them if you offer me the same contract.
Yeah, or more, yeah.
Even a couple million less. Because I don't want to play with those fans.
I hope my
Trey
Giants
Turner,
get him.
That's the rumor. That's the biggest. That's the name that I keep seeing affiliated with Aaron Judge outside of the Yankees. Like, they're the only ones that I keep seeing regularly. But
So there are three names on this list that the Giants are claiming they're going to be going after.
I assume it's him, the next guy.
No. It's
No?
No. So there's actually a lot of talks about Aaron Judge, Carlos Correa, and bringing Carlos Rodon back. They already offered him the qualifying offer. We'll see what happens with that.
Carlos Rodon makes sense that he opted out because he did sign a fairly team friendly contract because he was coming off an injury.
And he had an insane year.
Yeah. So it makes sense for him to opt out to get, ace level money. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes back. Correa makes sense.
I don't want Carlos Correa. Like, the baseball side of me looks at his numbers and looks at him as being, I think he's only 26, 27.
Yeah, he is pretty young.
And I'm like, that production would be really nice to have. But then I look at him and I'm like, I don't know if I want anybody that was on that Astros team. Like,
I'll say this: if you saw, just from a pure baseball standpoint, if you signed Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa
and brought Rodon back, that's a scary Giants team next year.
You instantly go way up in the rankings. I mean, in the preseason prediction rankings.
Oh, yeah.
World Series odds go way up.
Oh, yeah.
So
it would just be what you could fill around them, knowing how much you're going to have to pay them.
Right.
But we do have a few older guys still on contract, but it's like, we need to get better. We need to get rid of those old guys. That's the point.
And then it becomes, if you get Correa, does that mean you're getting rid of Brandon Crawford?
He would probably
you move him to second?
Yeah, he would probably move to second because right now, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have like a great second baseman. Yeah. We've had some guys fill in and be pretty good, but the guy that played a lot of second base for us, Donovan Solano, was traded last year. So we don't.
Which was a weird trade for me because I thought he was a really good up and coming player.
I didn't like the trade, to be honest, but
yeah, I don't know what they got back, but
Like
I remember seeing him get traded, and I was like, oh, I thought he was like one of the future building blocks for the team.
he had a few slumps that looked kind of bad, even though when he was there, he was good. But then he got hurt, and then he was just gone. And we were like, okay.
Yeah. But, all right. Really quick, the last ones we got Trey Turner. Um, the rumor basically is if the Dodgers can somehow get Aaron Judge, they'll drop Trey Turner. If they can't, then they'll try to get Turner back. But he's going to be worth a lot of money. He's a very good infielder.
I wouldn't mind the Giants
Uh,
going after him either. Cause
yeah,
I would just laugh if the Giants somehow got Judge and Turner.
that'd be a big get. That honestly, I think Turner's probably a little better player than Correa. He's not as young, but
The
I mean,
benefit that Turner would have would be he'd be semi-familiar with the ballpark.
true. And the division,
Yeah.
the pitchers and stuff like that. Yeah, that's true. When you're going, Correa's been American League his whole career. When you switch to the National League, you get a whole lot of new pitchers, and a lot of guys slump when they switch leagues.
Yeah.
Let's see where we at. Justin Verlander, I'm sure we'll get back on the Astros. They'd be idiots to let him go. Rodon, we talked about. Wilson Contreras is honestly over Anthony Rizzo. Wilson Contreras is the one guy I want Cleveland to get. If we don't get anyone else, catcher is our biggest need. Contreras is a really good player, and I really thought they were going to try to get him at the trade deadline.
Wouldn't that have been nuts?
Honestly, if we get him, I honestly think we have a shot to have at least played the Astros. I don't know if we would have beaten them, but I think we would have beaten the Yankees.
To be honest, I don't
I
know
don't
if
think our
anybody was
catchers had
beating
a
the Astros.
yeah. I don't think our catchers had a single hit in the playoffs combined between all of them.
Thank you.
The last one I have on here is Josh Bell. He was on the Padres. Is going to be a free agent. Really good first baseman. But
I don't know. Gonna be interesting.
yeah, it's going to be the other obviously big rumor is that Shohei Ohtani is on the last year of his deal. Do they try to trade him because the odds are he's not going back to LA once his deal is up?
Yeah. I don't know.
The it was either the owner or the GM came out and was like, "We're not getting rid of Ohtani," and I'm like, "Well, that's stupid of you because you're gonna lose him for nothing, and you're not doing anything next year because you're the Angels." So.
I mean, but that's assuming that they'd lose him. Maybe they think they can get him back.
I just
he's
don't
already
see how you could assume that.
He's already showed his disapproval of the losing. And that's what the Angels do. I don't see next year necessarily being any different.
Yeah, I mean, even if Mike Trout's healthy all year, like even with Mike Trout, they weren't winning.
Although, can we just appreciate Mike Trout for 1 second? He hit
He hit
40 home runs in like 440 at bats. Like that's insanity.
His numbers were ridiculous for how much time he missed. Almost 2 full months, and he put up numbers that rivaled pretty much anybody in the league.
Mike Trout is like my biggest disappointment in a person in baseball. Like for on field, the just being so okay with the situation when you are easily one of the top 3 players in the league ever since you joined the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think easily the best player in the league until maybe the last couple seasons.
You could make that claim.
Mostly just for injuries.
Yeah, but my thing is, and like being just so okay with like no re-signing with the Angels and knowing that things aren't gonna change, but I don't know, like it's a disappointment in him as a person, not him as a player, which hurts.
I just want him to have success.
I think that's what it is.
Like he's such a nice person, it seems like, and he's obviously such a great player, and he's just wasted. Like the best talent, arguably in the history of baseball, and he's played in one playoff series in his entire career, and they lost.
Yeah, that's
I think they got swept. If I
yeah. It was
remember correctly.
he's played 3 career playoff games.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But last piece of news before we get to our okay, before we get to talking about the World Series, I guess. The Astros, interestingly, after winning the World Series, fired their GM and their assistant GM. Bold move. Uh,
Especially
I
after
don't
you
get.
just win, which doesn't that's what kind of confused me.
Well, okay, so the story is basically they offered him a 1 year contract for, I mean, really good money. He was like, "We just won the World Series. Like, give me a long-term contract." And they were like, "No, we're just gonna offer you for next year." And he was like, "All right, then fire me." And then the assistant GM, I think, just kind of wanted to go with him.
Mm.
But I just don't like. It wasn't just like old guys who got them that World Series. They had a lot of guys that have come up in the last year or two, or have traded. They've traded for who were key components in that World Series. I just don't understand this move at all.
The Astros are just doing Astros things. Because some team is going to end up with a pretty good GM.
Yeah, I mean they must be decent because they had probably the number 3 rookie of the year this year. They had a few guys that they traded for in the offseason or trade deadline. Like he made a lot of moves to get them this World Series. I just don't understand this at all.
Yeah, whatever's clever, I guess.
Yeah.
It kind of threw me off when I read about it, but hey,
Yeah.
if the money's the issue, then go somewhere where you're more wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing is winning the World Series with guys that he got there, and then getting rid of him is just so strange. But all right, let's talk World Series. The Astros beat the Phillies in 6 games.
Yes.
So you actually nailed that. You had that right.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. I had more faith in Philly. Um, Unfortunately, that was not founded in anything. They really looked outmatched the whole series. Even the games they won, they.
I would argue they didn't because the game 5 that they won when they went home.
It's fair.
Or was it? No, it was game 3.
3.
Game 3. Because
yeah, they won by a lot.
Because I remember after the first 2 we had our podcast, I said the only way the Philly even has a chance is if they go home and they blow them out. And that is exactly what they did. So I got hope. And then the next game they got no hit, and that hope was immediately extinguished.
Yeah, I feel like that was the big turning point. Was like, I think my prediction was after the first 2 games, they would alternate. Philly would win 3, Astros would win 4, Phillies would win 5, and then Philly would win 7. And then as soon as they got no hit, I feel like they just lost all momentum. They just had nothing going for them.
It was almost like they just didn't know what to do at that point.
Yeah. Which also, I know it was a combined no-hitter, but like no-hitter in the World Series is nuts.
Yeah, but the combined definitely takes away from
of course
the gravity of it to an extent.
I mean, it's still only the second no-hitter in World Series history. The other one was a solo no-hitter. I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
To me, it's crazy. The World Series was fun to watch, kind of for a little bit, but like you said, the Astros looked like they were pretty much in control the whole time.
Outside that one game, because even game 2, Yeah, they won, or no, game one. The Phillies won, but they had to like scratch and claw to win that game. Like they really had to fight for it. And every game the Astros won seemed like it was not a difficult game.
Yeah, well, I'm bummed, but I'm the way I'm looking at it is there's two really cool things that I like that happened out of the World Series and Houston winning. One
I know one of them for you.
is Dusty Baker winning his chip.
Yeah,
Hall of Fame manager finally gets one. And the dude's like fucking 90 now. And he actually they just re-signed him, I think, to like a 2-year contract.
yeah.
Which I think was great. But you know what the other one is that I don't know if many people were paying much attention to, but Trey Mancini got a chip.
That's fair.
From where he was a couple years ago to winning a chip, I like that story.
Yeah, yeah. To being out of the league, like with close to terminal cancer, to being a World Series champion
And
is,
and not only a World Series champion, but making one of arguably maybe one of the most important defensive plays of in that World Series.
yeah,
The snag he had at first when it was, I think it was tied in like the 8th inning of game 5. And
yeah,
I think it was game 5. I don't think it was game 6. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure it was game
yeah.
5.
It was.
Which would have scored runs for Philly. Oof, that was,
Yeah,
I don't know. It was, that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm not looking at it as Houston won. I'm looking at it as a couple guys that I really like got their championship, and I'm just gonna try and coast past the fact that the rest of the team got it.
we have never hid the fact that neither of us are exactly Astros fans.
And honestly, I'm not even necessarily that mad. There's only a couple players on that team anymore that are still there that I really don't like.
Unfortunately, it's some of the worst ones.
Yeah, but still.
It was Correa, Altuve, and Bregman, and Bregman and Altuve are the ones that are still there.
And I would argue that Bregman and Altuve are like two of the worst.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Correa was the other one that was really bad with it, and he's gone now. So, but I feel like Altuve is definitely a lifelong Astro.
At this point, yeah.
Bregman could leave, but
I don't think. I don't know. It's hard for me to say who they appreciate there more, because there are guys that are with your team for a long time that people just don't ever really appreciate, even if they're really good. So I don't know how Houston feels about Bregman.
Definitely the bigger name of the two, but
well, yeah, I know like Altuve is beloved in Houston.
Yeah,
but I don't know if Bregman holds that same love from the fans.
Not as much as Altuve or even Correa did. He was the third fiddle in that. But all right, let's move. Unless you had something else about the World Series.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to looking at our preseason predictions for the MLB season and seeing how we did. All right, so I have the Google Doc pulled up for what we had for our preseason predictions, and I have the standings here. How do we want to do this? All right, I'm gonna read through I'll read through our predictions, and then I'll go to the actual, and I'll keep track of which ones we got right. All right, so your prediction for the American League East was Blue Jays, Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Orioles. I had Blue Jays, Rays, Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles. So the actual was Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Orioles, Red Sox. For those keeping track at home, that means we got zero. Both of us got zero right in the AL East.
To be fair, the Red Sox were a huge disappointment this year.
The Red Sox were a train wreck.
Outside of that, I don't think anybody expected the Yankees to blow up like they did.
The Yankees had such a ridiculous start that it was record breaking.
So
Um,
I would say that division, top to bottom, I don't know if very many people would have got that right.
no, the other thing is the Orioles finishing 4 games over 500 is nobody saw that coming.
Especially when they were one of the two worst teams like
Yeah,
all year last year.
yeah, it was them and the Diamondbacks last year fighting for the worst team in the league. Um, yeah. All right, let's go to the AL Central. You had the White Sox, Twins, Royals, Guardians, Tigers. I had White Sox, Twins, so we swapped our top two. I had Guardians at 3, Tigers at 4, Royals at 5. The actual standings: Guardians at 1. Nobody. I I'm a huge Cleveland fan. I didn't predict that. Nobody had Cleveland finishing at number 1 with how many young players they had. Um, White Sox at 2, uh, Twins at 3, Tigers at 4, Royals at 5. So I had 2 right there. You had 0 again. And I only had the bottom 2, so it's not like.
Again, another team in the White Sox, huge disappointment, even though they're at
And
500.
Twins. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
Twins
Twins,
were.
you were higher on the Twins at the beginning of the year than I was.
The Twins won the division last year. I think they went like 12 games, 13 games over 500. They were like in the mid 90s for wins, and this year they finished at 78. It was a big drop off.
And like you said when you started, no one expected the Guardians to be that high up.
No, nobody, not even in Cleveland.
Uh,
All right, going to the AL West, you had Astros, A's. that was a bold pick.
it's a bold move, Cotton. See how it turns out.
Angels, Mariners, Rangers. I had Mariners. I was higher on them. They still had a really good year, but Astros, Angels, Rangers, A's. The actual standings: Astros, Mariners, Angels, Rangers, A's. So you had 2 there. I had
You had 3.
3. Yeah, I was higher on the Mariners. They didn't disappoint necessarily. They got 90 wins, just the Astros. I picked them to finish second out of spite, and it bit me because
Yeah.
otherwise I would have had that division perfect.
Which,
If I wouldn't have let my heart get in front of my head.
if I wouldn't have memed by picking the A's second, I probably would have had a more fun there.
That was a bold pick for sure.
But the sad part is, any other year, it wouldn't have been that crazy because they almost always finish top 2.
They sold off everybody this year. And then they sold off more people in the middle of the season.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't even think they're going to be better next year.
So as of, I think, like when they were, I think we were a couple weeks into the playoffs, there was a report that came out locally that the A's had literally 0 money allocated to next year's payroll.
Yeah.
Which means
everybody on their roster is gone.
Yeah, which means they literally, technically, once the year ended, didn't have a team.
Yeah. I mean, granted, some of those guys are going to be arbitration, so like they're still on the team, they're just not on a contract yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a mess.
I don't think I've ever heard that for any major professional sport, ever.
No, definitely not.
To not have one person on contract, like how cheap can you possibly be?
Yeah. There was also something, I think it was after the trade deadline that we talked about that the A's had their highest paid player was getting paid like 2.5 million or something.
Yeah. Well, I think the crazy thing with the A's payroll this year, going into this year, the A's had the lowest payroll in all of baseball at
Right.
32 like point four
Sounds
million or
right.
something
Yeah.
like that. Which is funny because exactly I think it was like 20 years ago. It was like 2001, 2002. They had one of the highest, if not the highest payroll in baseball. Guess what it was? 32 point something million. Like their
Well, yeah.
payroll
That
hadn't
was like
changed in like 20 years.
that was the Jason Giambi, um, Johnny Damon A's.
Yeah, where they when they had oh god, Hudson and
Yeah. Yeah. But all right, let's move to so just to put that in perspective, there's 15 teams in the American League. I only had 5, you only had 2. It's a rough prediction for both of us.
well, the American League isn't my thing. So let's see if
It is mine, so
let,
I guess that makes sense that I'm a little ahead of you.
let's see if I can redeem myself in the National League. Although looking at the standings, it's not gonna look good.
All right, let's start in the NL East. You had Braves, Phillies, Mets, Nationals, Marlins. I had Phillies, Mets, Braves, Marlins, Nationals. The actual standings were Braves, so you got a point there. Mets, Phillies. Uh, oh wait, so I got a point at Mets. Um, Marlins and Nationals. Nationals finishing with the worst record in baseball this year.
That one
Um,
was brutal.
yeah, it's just
And
it's so hard to predict full divisions.
when it's funny because I had the teams in like roughly the right areas. Like if you flip the Phillies and Mets and the Marlins and Nationals, I had a perfect run on that
Right.
one. It was just like I knew
Nash-
they'd be
yeah.
middle, I knew they'd be at the bottom, but I just had them backwards.
The only saving grace for the Mets to start the year was they had Juan Soto, and then once they traded him, they had
You mean the
nobody on
Nationals?
that
Yeah.
team. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah, Nationals did finish, I believe, right, with the worst record in
Yeah,
baseball.
55.
Yeah,
By
Phillies were
by a
the
wide
second.
margin. Five
Uh,
five games.
5
That's
games.
pretty wide.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the NL Central. You had Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals, Reds, Pirates. I had Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs, Reds, Pirates.
Whew.
Uh, yeah, that was a good one for
Yeah,
me.
you clean swept that
The
one.
no, I flipped Reds and Pirates.
Oh,
I guess it depends where you look at. The Reds and Pirates finished tied in record, but I think the Pirates had the technically had the tiebreaker.
ooh,
But
that I don't know.
that's how that has it listed on the official MLB standings. So we'll go with that. So yeah, the official standings: Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs, Pirates, Reds. Uh, so yeah, I got 3.
I don't
You
think I
got
got any. Two
you
maybe.
had 0 on that
No,
one.
none. No, because I had the Reds and Pirates flipped. I think
Yeah, you had Reds and Pirates flipped, and then
my top three were all messed up.
yeah. All right, closing out with the NL West. You had Dodgers, Giants, Padres, Rockies, Diamondbacks. I had Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Rockies, Diamondbacks. The actual standings: Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, Rockies. So you had 1.
Yeah.
And I had the top 3.
I think I only guessed right like 3 out of the 30.
You had 4.
Yeah, 4.
I had 13.
Yeah,
The NL was actually better to me.
which is kind of funny.
I had 8 in the NL and only 5 in the AL.
That was brutal.
I mean, to be fair, so you picked the Giants because you. I remember when we were talking about this, doing our predictions, and you were like, I'm picking the Giants because I didn't pick them last year, and they surprised me. You're like, I think the Padres are better on paper, but I can't pick against the Giants 2 years in a row after they proved me wrong last year.
Yeah, I should have.
So,
I should have.
well, I mean, fair, but
This is what happens every year. I'm optimistic about the Giants. Whenever I say they're going to play like shit and I don't care, fuck the Giants, I'll watch games, whatever, they always seem to do well. And I'm like, okay, cool. Every time I'm like, dude, the Giants got a good team this year. We're looking good. We got it. They
you should
they
know,
throw it out like this.
as a Giants fan, you should know that they're an every other year team. That's how they won their World Series.
But this is an odd year or an even year. These are the years where they're supposed to do good.
Well, maybe they switched that last year because they weren't good the year before last year
Well,
either.
if they get Judge
So,
and Correa or Judge or Correa, they better be good next year.
I'm saying they were good last year. They were bad this year. They'll be good again next year.
But the Dodgers
Next year,
just
pick
killed
them to
it.
be number 2. I mean, the Dodgers paid for their their wins.
But even
I mean,
still, back-to-back years of
essentially,
105 plus wins, like
you're talking about what was their payroll, like 280,
for
somewhere in that range.
oh yeah, it was unreal.
So you're talking about essentially like 2.5, 2.6 million dollars per win is what you're paying as the Dodgers.
But to be fair though, the Giants payroll is only I think 10 million, 20 million less. Maybe it was 30. But it was up there. And look where they're at. Hell, even the Padres was way up there and they were 22 games back.
If you have a good front office, you don't need to pay for your wins. Look at Cleveland. They're even after they signed Jose Ramirez to a massive contract extension. Their payroll was still only like, let's see, their payroll was 56 million.
I mean, to be fair though, Cleveland wouldn't have won any division but the one that they're in.
No, but they would have made the playoffs still.
Yes.
They would have been in second in the East and the West.
And they would have been better than
In National League, they would have been second in the Central. They would have been third in the NL East.
yeah. Outside of
They
that
would have
though,
knocked out the Phillies, actually,
which is kind of funny.
who made the World Series. But yeah,
So far, I'm not.
Yeah.
The preseason predictions are not looking good for me.
it's been that they were rough. I mean, even me, I'm well under 500 for the.
That was a tough. Do we have any egregious over unders that are comical? That's what I'm curious about.
Oh, I didn't even look at the over unders. Okay, let me look at that. All right, let's start in the AL East.
I'm talking just like
actually,
funny ones, good ones.
I mean, New York was 8.5 or 7.5 over theirs. We both picked under for New York. They were at 91.5 wins, and we picked under. So
yeah,
that's not great.
Yeah, that was pretty wrong.
Boston was at 85.5, and I picked under. So I guess I was
Okay,
right.
so you got that one.
You went over 85.5. They finished with 78. The White Sox were projected to win 91.5. They finished at 81, and we both picked over on that. So they were 10.5 games under projected, and we both thought they'd get more.
What was my over under for the A's?
Let's see. I know you went over on that.
I know I went over.
Okay, so the A's were 10.5 under their projection. Their projection was 70.5. You picked over. I picked under. Cleveland, 76.5. We did both pick over, but we both thought it would be like 76 to 80 wins. And they finished with 92. So that's a pretty big one. The Angels, 83.5. They finished at 73, and we both picked over for them.
Why Why do we even?
I don't know. Because on paper they should be better. They have the two best players in all of baseball. Maybe not this year. I mean, Judge was better than both
Yeah.
of those guys, but they were still like second and third, maybe third or second and fourth.
Well, and there are people still arguing that Ohtani should have won over Judge. Get out of here.
Yeah, that's a joke. All right, let's see. National League. You picked under for the Mets at 90 and a half.
Oh yeah,
They won 101.
That's bad.
To be fair, I remember your logic being like the Mets are going to be the Mets and they're going to fail.
Well, and they did. It just was too little, too late. Like by the time they started sucking,
Right.
It was kind of like the Yankees. They had built up such a lead that.
Yeah. You said over on the Nationals at 71 and a half.
That might
They
be the
finished
most
with
egregious.
55. So that's already 16 games. They're already 16 games below their prediction, and you picked over that.
That one's pretty egregious.
Let's see, NL Central. Where'd the Brewers finish? Pretty close. No, none really there. We both picked. Oh no, actually they were under their prediction. You picked over for the Reds. 74 and a half. They finished with 62. So that's a 12 and a half game.
I don't know what I saw in the Reds. I had to have saw something.
I specifically put this, so I don't know why, but you, for the Dodgers, they were at 97 and a half. And you said over, but I don't think they'll hit 100.
I remember watching them towards the end of the year hit like 95 with like 10 games left or 12 games left or whatever it was.
It was more than that because they got to 111. So
well, no, they had 95 and there was like, I don't know, maybe it was like 9 or 10 games left. And I remember seeing it and just being like, fuck, they're going to get over 100. And then they just blew by it.
We both picked over for the Giants at 85 and a half. We picked, honestly, I mean, the worst team in the division was the Rockies at 68, which is right where they were predicted. The Diamondbacks were projected at 66, and they finished with 74. And we both thought they'd be under 66, so...
The Diamondbacks were surprisingly better than I thought they were going to be this year, but they weren't good. That's the only problem.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost halfway through the season when every team in the NL West was still over 500. That was kind of crazy. You know what's really crazy? Before the season, if you would have bet on Aaron Judge to win the MVP, when we made this list, which I think was a week before the season started, he was plus 1,500. So that means if you put a $100 bet down, you would have made $1,500 back. You could have made a lot of money.
Somebody made a lot of money.
I'm sure. That's not even that crazy of an MVP pick.
No. That really isn't. It's not like you're going out there on some random.
Yeah.
Especially in a contract year, too. That's seems kind of high, to be honest.
Did they announce the MVPs and stuff?
I thought they did, but maybe they hadn't gotten that far. I know they started announcing like Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers.
Yeah, they haven't. They've just announced the finalists.
Which, I'm sorry, for a regular season award, how has the World Series been over for a week and them not released like the biggest awards for the year?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Like, those should have been voted on during the playoffs. That way, when the season ends, the World Series is over, you can then start rolling them out the next day.
Who's the favorite for NL? Probably Goldschmidt.
Probably. I haven't looked at who is because it's no one from my team. So
Who you probably could have made a whole lot of money betting on was uh, Justin Verlander for Cy Young. He's not even on the list.
ooh, I wonder what that would make it. I wonder what his odds would have been then. Because there is like a limit to what the odds can be, if I'm not mistaken.
It can be a lot though.
I mean, I could be wrong.
Um,
So far, it looks like we had some bad preseason predictions.
it looks like he was not actually as far away as um, Aaron Judge. He was plus 1,300.
Okay.
So still pretty decent odds, but not like, nobody was picking him.
I mean, 1,300 is pretty far out.
That's a lot. I mean, 13 times your money, essentially. 13 to 1 odds is essentially what it boils down to. I don't know why they stopped doing odds like that. It's so much easier to understand.
I don't ever understand the plus 100 minus 300. I don't get it.
I don't get betting. Like, I don't bet, so I don't get it. But, like, yeah, that's the only thing I know somebody told me is that the plus is how much you win if you bet $100. I don't know how that works for minus because you're not going to lose that money.
Well, no. So I would imagine then the minus would be how much you would have to put in to get the dollar
to make money.
Yeah. So like if you're a negative 300, if the 1,300 is or plus 1,300 is 13 times your money, like a negative 300 would be like maybe you have to put in $3 to win one.
Okay, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? So for every $3 you get the $1 win.
That makes sense.
So you can make money, you just have to invest a lot more money.
Right.
And if you lose a lot more comparatively to what you would win.
Yeah. All right. So, really quick final thing here for the predictions. You and I both picked the Dodgers versus the Blue Jays as the World Series, so neither of us were right there.
Both in the playoffs, though.
They did both make the playoffs.
I want to say they both got close, but the Blue Jays did not get close.
No. They didn't even get out of the wild card. I had the Dodgers winning. You had the Blue Jays winning. Not that it matters. Neither of us got there. NL MVP, you had Acuna. I had Juan Soto. Neither of those will be winning.
No.
We both picked Vlad Guerrero for the AL MVP. He will not win that.
He did have a good year, but not MVP level.
He had a step backwards year from his numbers weren't as good as last year, but still not bad numbers. No. Just not as good as last year. You and I both picked Shane Bieber for the AL Cy Young. He also had a good year, but not Cy Young good. You picked Walker Buehler for the NL. I picked Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns had a good year. Walker Buehler got hurt pretty early and missed most
Both of my picks this year got hurt.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, my original pick was DeGrom for the first week of the season.
Of the year. Yeah. Worst team of the year. You picked the Diamondbacks, who didn't have a terrible year.
They weren't even close, wins. To be honest. Yeah.
They won. I mean, they were 19 games above the worst team. I picked the Pirates, who were 7 games above the worst team. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I forgot the Reds and Pirates tied. So yeah, they were 7 games ahead, but there was like the Reds were worse than them. The Royals, the Tigers, the A's. So
yeah, the Diamondbacks actually had a much better year this year than
they had a really good year. They had a lot of young players last year. and it seems like a lot of those guys took a little step forward with a few good pieces. They could be. I mean, they're not going to compete for that division, but
No, that division is way too top heavy.
yeah, I mean, it sucks for. I mean, the Giants have a shot because they will spend, or they have the opportunity to spend money. The Diamondbacks and Rockies are pretty much irrelevant for the next decade.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
No matter
basically.
what they do, they can't do anything against the Padres and Dodgers and potentially Giants if they do get some free agent pieces.
Yeah, if the Giants spend, they're going to be just as good as the Dodgers, Padres. If the Giants spent like the Dodgers and Padres, they would be competing with the Dodgers every year.
Yeah. Well, and if the Dodgers or the Giants spent on pieces that weren't aging superstars who won them World Series
Well, but
6 years
that's what I
ago.
mean. If they spend like the Dodgers,
Yeah, on bringing in guys from the outside.
yeah, and spending money for their good free agents and just being okay with it, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Ah,
Um. Okay. Unless you got anything else to add, let's rate our beers. This is actually pretty good. It's not it's not anything special. It's a pretty standard IPA, but it's a solid one. I'm gonna put it at a 79. And again, this is the Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company in California. Do you want to rate all of your
okay, so
things
we'll just
separately,
do.
or do you want to do?
I'm
How do you
just
want to do
we'll
this?
just do the Smirnoff Ice lemonade pack. We'll just do it as like a
Okay.
as a unit.
Okay.
So I've tried 3 of I think the 4 flavors. Blue raspberry, pink lemonade, and oh, what was that? Pineapple. I would say if you're a White Claw fan, I think these are better personally. Although
Okay.
I think White Claws are absolute dog shit, and I don't know how people drink them.
I'm not a fan of any seltzer
They're
drinks.
they taste like
They're like
flavored water. It doesn't taste good.
I don't like flavor. I don't like sparkling water and flavored waters either because they're always so under flavored that they just are like they're like hints of flavoring.
Yeah, I don't like it. This has a lot of flavor, very sweet. The kind of thing that would give you a gnarly hangover or migraine the
If you
next
drank
day.
a bunch of them.
Well, yeah, because of sugar content.
Yeah, yeah,
Because that's what gives you the migraine
yeah.
is all the sugar. Uh,
Back in the day when we were young and I didn't have to worry about that, and I could drink vodka Red Bulls all night.
right? I feel that. So these I think are better flavor wise, but they are very sweet.
Yeah,
But they're pretty good as far as like really cheap, just like fruity drinks that you could take on the summer. Now, even though now we're in winter, I could see grabbing like a 12 pack of this, throwing it in a cooler, and going out to the beach or going out to the lake or something, and having these.
fair.
Pretty good. I would rate the pack from everything I've tried so far. I probably put it high 60s, low 70s. So I will say we'll cut the difference. We'll go 60, 68.
Yeah,
It's really good, but I, like you, am not necessarily always a huge fan of the like sweet stuff like
yeah.
this. These are pretty good for those kind of things.
All right.
Oh, all right. This season was a hell of a ride.
It's a fun year. Sucks the Astros won, but it was a fun baseball season. We had some fun on the show.
I had fun on the show. The season drove me nuts, but
I had a lot of fun in this season because my team way overperformed.
I was checked out by like a week after All-Star break. As
Uh,
far as like following my team closely goes, they were
yeah,
so bad for a while. They made a run. The Giants made a run like the last 3 weeks of the season
yeah, it was just
to
too late.
to bring it back to 500. So the season doesn't look like a complete failure, but like really when you watched it throughout, they were a bad team this year.
I mean, with the payroll the Giants have, 500 is kind of a failure.
No, it is. It's objectively a failure with how much they spend.
Yeah, right.
Like if you're telling me Cleveland is at 500, I'm like, okay, that's not a failure.
Right.
If the A's are at 500, I'm like, that's not a failure. Actually, that's probably a success.
I'm like, that's a pretty damn good year.
With
Good
what they,
job, A's.
but I'm talking normally when they're one of the lower teams, not necessarily literally a dumpster team. Like those are okay, but for the Giants, when you're paying 150 to 250 million dollars in payroll, that's not a successful season. 500 does not cut it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to throw out this week
No.
before we close
You
it
want
up?
to explain what we're doing going forward here?
Yes. So before we leave today, want to let you guys know we're going to be taking a small break for a couple months. We will be still tweeting. Check out our Twitter, Bases and Brews, or at Bases Brews. Still want to get that. It drives me nuts. But
if you search for Bases and Brews, we'll be there. Look for our logo, but it is at Bases Brews.
But check us out. Check us out there. We're going to be taking a break doing the podcast for a couple months, and then we will be back probably spring training time just to get ready for the new season, hopefully with a revamped setup and everything. But we will be stepping away for a little bit, but we will be on Twitter. So reach out to us on Twitter if you have any questions or you want to just talk to us about some sports.
Yeah. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, we did talk about if something big happens, we might hop on and do a quick 20-minute stream, just kind of talk about a single topic instead of a full podcast.
Yes, you could see.
We'll kind of see
videos popping up on the feed.
But yeah, follow us or subscribe on YouTube. Turn on notifications there to see when we go live, and we'll hop up from now and again, maybe around like NFL playoff time. We'll see who made the playoffs or Super Bowl, stuff like that.
I'm sure we'll get at least have a video out in December when the Hall of Fame committee meets, when that is all done.
Yep.
I think that happens December 10th. So somewhere around that ballpark, I'm sure we'll have a video out. And then after that, we'll just keep an eye out. We will be around, but we are going to be taking a break from just the podcast side of it for a couple months while we readjust some stuff and kind of get back in the groove.
Yeah. Definitely follow us on Twitter. We'll post everything there, and follow or subscribe on YouTube. Turn on the notifications to see when we go live.
All right. Anything else you want to add before we send this one off and don't see these lovely people for a little bit?
No.
All right.
Been a fun, however many episodes we've done in a row.
We've got 80 some odd?
80, 84 we're on. Yeah.
So
maybe a week or two off here and there, but
yeah, we've been pretty consistent.
Yeah. But yeah, excited to get back to it when we do, but be good to take a little break and revamp and get ready to go for next baseball season.
Yes. So have a good winter break, good holidays since we're almost at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we will see you guys all very soon. Time flies. You'll see us all very soon. But have a good one, everybody.
Later.